I'm gonna open two things. One of them is the one that you probably saw on a reel recently, because it might be worth just unpacking that. Um,
Yeah, that looked very clever. I thought, yeah, how you moved it through the cabinetry.
yeah, well, let's start with the ends. Let's just put that on screen, the all the scenes and how they animate, and then let's backtrack to how that's set up.
Mm.
And I'm also going to show it you on the iPad, which I can screen share onto here, which is quite cool. I've only just discovered that. Okay, so overview of what I've done. Up at the top here, I've got my scenes,
Yeah,
and that is the same as this tray here.
yes.
So you can edit them in either place. Most often, I'm up here clicking between them. So I guess what this shows you is if we go from perspective to window, you can see that this bed has disappeared.
Yeah,
So one function of a scene is, well, let's say the first function of a scene is you're basically positioning your camera and saying, I want to save that position.
yeah,
You've got to think of it more. This won't be news to you, but you're not really spinning the model. You're just moving a camera position because the model's always in the same place.
yeah,
That's one function of a scene, is choosing your viewpoint and then just flipping back to it. Another function is to control visibility, which you can do in quite a lot of ways. And this is where it can get confusing. You can click on one item, uh, right click and hide it, and then update your scene. So I'm going to update this scene by going up to the scene I'm currently on, right clicking, and simply going to update. So now if I go from perspective back to window, it's
yeah.
updated the closer camera position and the hiding of that item. Um, so that's sort of an item by item hiding process. You can sort of reassure yourself that it still exists by going to view hidden objects.
Yeah.
So there it is. The other way to hide things would be to use your tags, which used to be called layers. Now, I've got a pretty complex tagging structure now, which is to do with how I want to quickly control the scenes. So I've set up a bunch of components in a library which are already on a given tag. So when I drop them into the model, um, they
Yeah,
drop that tag. So I mean, it won't take me long, so I might as well show that. I use Flex Tools extension, component finder,
yeah, I do the same.
sure, and then I've got a bunch of things which are in what I call my room furniture and items to store, because I find it so useful to just drop books onto a shelf to show customers the orientation, the sizing. And normally they'd
Yeah,
land the right way around, but this is a 3D room, so it's spun around. So anyway, without getting too much off track, that has landed without me having to do anything in a tag called items to store. So I can control the visibility of all those items just by checking the visibility of that tag over on the
yeah,
right. So once again, having made that tag not visible, again I can go and update that scene, and those will remain invisible by virtue of the tag being turned off.
yeah.
Right? So again, I've saved that. Just carrying on through the scenes. So in this scene, I've gone to the face on view, but I've also turned off parallel projection. So I've turned off perspective, so I'm on parallel projection. So again, that setting will be saved to the scene. I've also switched from, if you'll see up here on the sort of rendering, I've switched from shaded, which is what the other scenes were, to hidden line. And again, with that selected and I've updated the scene, that is saved to the scene
Okay.
and on through. Something that CabinetSense gives extra functionality with, which is for me almost one of the top features of CabinetSense. I mean, obviously on top of being able to CNC, I actually find this the thing I use possibly most often is automatically, as soon as I've created a scene and I just put any annotation or dimension in, CabinetSense takes care of that being private to the scene. And that's to use Paul's language and how he set it up. So, I mean, if I go back to elevation here and I simply go to my standard, dimensioning tool and just add something there. That has been, CabinetSense has taken care of that being put on a tag, which has been set up to only be visible on that scene. So if I go back to, any other scene, that dimension was in there, but it's not there because this scene doesn't display the tag it was put on. Are you following me?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is telling me the tag that the selected thing is on. So previously I'd have had to go and then put that onto new tag.
Yeah.
And then I'd have made sure that visibility of new tag is off on the other scenes. But it was so annoying because I would then create a subsequent new scene, and by default all those tags were visible. I'd have to then manually make that not visible and then update the scene.
Yeah.
So this is essentially what scene management in CabinetSense takes care of. And get rid of this. You need to make sure when you're using CabinetSense that this is on before you draw anything. Once you started a new drawing, you've got to not put any components in unless this is on. I'm not entirely sure why, but it won't work otherwise.
Okay.
So as long as that's on, then this whole process of automating the hiding of dimensions is just going to work. But you need to make sure, like, you don't want to go, okay, let's say I've got this view and I want this to exist as a scene. You don't want to make the mistake of going, okay, I'm going to create a different scene now that also has dimensions, and then start adding dimensions because they're going to stay on the scene you're on. You have to say, okay, so I want this to be the basis of a new scene. Maybe I'll just tweak the view a bit. So then you go and right click on that scene tab at the top and go to add. And this is something that you wouldn't see without CabinetSense. So this is part of scene management. I basically always go copy current scene. That's the only way I use it. And then you add your new name. So you might say, I don't know, close section, whatever. So that's the name of your scene. And so that's being created, and I can flick back to the previous one. But only having created it, then you just add your dimensions, and they just will be private to that scene. You don't have to do anything else. So I find that so useful.
Yeah.
Carrying on through, I mean, another thing to get familiar with is sections. Do you use the section tool at all?
No, not at all.
Yeah, that'll be a big one, I think, for you. So let's have a look at this scene, because the way I work is I have a lot of. So for a job like this, I surveyed it and drew it out before we knew which wall we might even fit the fitted furniture on. So I wanted to have all the walls drawn. My methodology is generally, as soon as I draw a wall, I go up here. So I've drawn my wall, I go up here and I make sure it's on the wall scene. So yeah, I will just draw it. I don't actually use CabinetSense's own walls because I find them too limiting. I just draw my own geometry, group it, and then I put it onto my wall scene. And then I know that with a single click over here in tabs, I can hide all the walls. But with a job like this, I may choose to actually individually hide the walls, because that's what I've done here, because I wanted to see these two. I didn't really want to faff around making a wall 1, wall 2, wall 3 tag. So this is an example of where I have simply selected them, right-clicked and gone to hide, and then saved that scene.
Yeah.
But another way of doing it, and I'll jump over to this other model. What is it? So this is another example of various different scenes of the same thing. I wanted to see, well, for whatever reason, I just thought I'm going to section it, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I didn't want to hide these walls. I just like the idea that I diagonally cut through. But again, I've been able to save that to a scene. So the way that works is, usually I have a scene that sort of has everything visible. There we go. So the way you'd section is you go to your section tool here. The creation of a section plane is on the large tool set, but it's really useful to have these additional things which you can add to the top just by right-clicking and choosing. I use this a lot now. Since putting it on the toolbar, I use it more and more. So to create a section, you click on that first one. And then depending on which surface you're hovering over, it's going to orient to that surface. And so say if you say, right, I want to sort of cut across here and look towards the window, you could do that by saying, okay, I'm going to orient to here. Let me just check this. Hold. Right, yeah. I'm holding the down. Yeah, holding the down key. So do you know that it works with rotating and stuff? If you just click between the arrow keys at the bottom right of your keyboard, it will lock to an orientation.
Is that right? Because sometimes when I'm trying to rotate stuff or anything else, you just get locked on the green axis or the red axis, and you
Yes.
can't hit the
So you
flick.
can sort of toggle, you can force it, you can make it not sort of respond to the surface it's on and force it to a given plane by toggling those.
Okay.
I'm always a bit hazy which is which, so I just toggle through. But yeah, so here we go. So that is in that orientation. So I click and it's going to section. And what it's done is it's now suddenly shown all the section planes that exist in the model, because there's quite a few in this model. And that's where these other buttons come in useful. So look, I can toggle displaying all of the planes or not.
Yeah.
Toggle actually displaying the active cut or not. And I can toggle displaying the darkened fill or not, which you can also choose the color of elsewhere. So I've created this section plane, and because I've just created it, it's active. And so I can just orient my view, change my visibility, and go right ahead and say, okay, now this is the view that I want. So I'm going to create a new scene. So that's how I've created that section scene. All these scenes here, the way you would jump between them, you can only have one active at once. So if you say, well, actually, I want now to see this section, you click on it as if it's an object. You see that it's selected. You right click and you go active cut. So then it's going to switch to using that section.
Okay.
And again, you can save that to another scene. So that's really useful. And this is the kind of thing where, like, what I might do for this job, which is coming up, I might have this section. I would probably favor a darker section fill. So now I would go over to styles, edit, and it's this last, you've got these various styles things. This last one here, section fill, and then I'm going to choose that to be a really black color. So
yeah,
again, that will, as long as I update the scene, that will save to the scene. You've got to remember to click update. I haven't clicked update. So when I go back, that setting will have disappeared. Oh,
yes.
in fact, I didn't even save the new section position. So you've got to always remember to update. But yeah, what I was going to say there is I might save a scene where I've zoomed in on that section, and I might save another scene because there's a reason on this job why the gap off the back of that cabinet is bigger than the other. So that's a sort of crucial thing where I need the fitter to immediately clock that. And if I wasn't in sections, then it would get missed. So just going back, I'm conscious that when I started showing the other model, I said, right, let's go through everything and show the end result. And I was going to show the animation. So let's just show that and then sort of unpick it. To generate an animation, you have to start with scenes because they are the different camera positions that you move through. You've got the option of working with your scenes over here, and I'm going to go into that a bit more, particularly these checkboxes here. So when you've created a scene, it is by default going to be included in an animation, which on the desktop version of SketchUp, you get to by the view menu, then you go to animation. Oh, that's interesting. I actually didn't know you could go to add an update here. But yeah, then you would go to play. And so this little thing will come up here where it allows you to pause it and stop it, etc. And it will just cycle through your scenes. You can you can control a few settings. So again, view, menu, animation, settings. So if you turn off enable scene transitions, then I think it's just going to flick through from one to the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But if you have scene transitions, it's going to move the camera position. And then you've got some control over the time. So you could make the actual process of transitioning shorter or faster, and then you could make the static view of a given scene shorter or faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something to watch for on that is I think I fixed it on here, but you can sometimes find that suddenly a wall pops up in your face. You know, you're sort of nicely moving to somewhere and suddenly you're sort of hitting a wall and going through it.
Yeah.
Uh, so let's just see. I can't remember if I did resolve that on this one. I think I did, and this was a new thing to me that I realized. Like sometimes I might have had a scene where maybe I'd left that wall over to the other side visible in that scene, but actually I was close enough that it may as well not be there. But in the process of sort of spinning around from another scene, I suddenly had to pass through it. So I've learned when I'm trying to create a nice smooth animation, I've learned to be quite careful about what is and isn't visible.
Yeah.
Because what it's basically doing is it's going, right, I'm gonna change the other scene, like in terms of visibility. There's a point where it's gone, right, all the things that need to show in the next scene are visible, but then it moves the camera. So that's just
Yeah.
to be aware of. So that's what you can do. And what I want to show you as well with this is, and this was really brand new to me this week, is when I really started experimenting with this. I thought this would be great to share on an Instagram reel. And I experimented a little bit with sort of cropping the view, because this is what I do when I export a JPEG. So I effectively crop the visible screen by dragging my toolbars over. Because sometimes like I've got a tall, narrow project and I just want to output a quick JPEG to fire off to the customer. So I'll
Hmm.
effectively crop it to a portrait format there, go to export 2D graphic,
Hmm.
save as a JPEG, you know. I think though, when I was exporting the animations, which you would do by same process actually, export animation, and whatever scenes are in there, you'll be able to export them. It won't respect that crop. So let's just try that. So yeah, I'm saving it as an MP4. You do have options on the resolution you can export as. So once you've gone to File menu, Export, Animation, just at the bottom then of where you're going to drop it, there's that options thing. That brings this up, and you can choose your resolution,
Mm.
including a custom one at a given size. In fact, yes, you think, yeah. So actually, I think I could here actually write in the pixels and choose that to be a portrait and export it that way. Um, yeah, so you can experiment with that. But what I want to show you, because I sort of prefer doing it, is I'm now regularly in the habit of airdropping my SketchUp files over to my iPad. Um,
Hmm.
and I think it's quite nice how you can quickly create a sort of Instagram Reels ready portrait version by going to the iPad. So let me just screen share, which is another new thing on me. I can straight away screen mirror from the iPad to the MacBook. Let's see if it works. So are you now?
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
SketchUp. I've got the iPad in portrait orientation. If I turn it, it's like that. But this is the nice thing is I can then I've already airdropped this over, and it's another great thing about SketchUp for the iPad. Oh, so I can't click. I can't click with my mouse. I've got to go over to the iPad and tap with my finger. But this is the nice thing about SketchUp is it does work really well with the iPad, and it works really well with Apple AirDrop and stuff. So
Hmm.
this is how the scenes look on the iPad. You've got your menu on the right, um, and your scene settings here. And so some things are a little different, but basically any scenes I've set up on the file on the computer will show here. And then the export process is in a different place. It's actually within the scenes. So you see the five icons at the top of that scene type
Hmm.
palette share like one. Just tapped on that. So then here you can go to animation. Took me a while to find this, but I just find this quite an easy way because it kind of just defaults to a portrait orientation. So I just hit export and then it will just dump it into my photos on the iPad, and then I can just put it on a reel, and it clears away all the clutter of the toolbar items. It takes a while to create for whatever reason, but yeah. So that's the animations. I won't show you the result because you can imagine it. In fact, it's on my reels.
Yeah.
Just to go back to the settings on the scenes, there's a number of ways that you could choose to use scenes, sorry. And I'd always assumed that the main point of scenes was to choose a camera angle. And then I was quite interested to discover you can save a scene and turn off the camera location. And that's actually quite powerful when you're navigating the model. So what I mean is, let's say we broadly just want to see what we've got here. But I want to flick between doors off. Yeah, let's take the doors off. I'm hesitating because there's something that I think might catch me out here, but it'll be educational if it does. So let's say I just want the option of hiding doors, walls, ceiling, and lights, and I want to go to an X-ray view. Okay. So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to do it here because I've got more options. I'm going to go to plus, new scene and save as new style. Yes. What was the naming it? But I'm going to, it looks like I have to do it after the fact, actually. So I'm going to uncheck camera location here and then update that again. And another way of updating it is this little thing here. Oh yeah, here we go. Go that thing here. Again, uncheck camera location. So the power of this is then I'm choosing my viewpoint, and I can use scenes then to just toggle. Is that right? Oh no, let's uncheck it on that one as well and update that. Right, this is what I want to do. Okay, so neither of these scenes that I want to toggle between now have saved camera location. So I could just be sort of with a customer or whatever, inspecting this and thinking, oh, actually, I want to just jump straight to an X-ray view. And because the camera location hasn't been saved to the scene, I'm not suddenly jumping to a different view.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, the thing I thought might catch me out, and it has, and this is a good learning point, is that when you toggle your door visibility using your CabinetSense toolbar, it automatically, whatever you last had the doors visible on that scene, you don't have to update the scene. It just assumes that when you go back to that scene, you're going to want those doors on or off. And that often catches me out because I've set up all my scenes, and I've got one that I'm sure the doors were set to be on, but because I'd been on that scene inspecting it and then I popped them off, and then I've gone to another scene, when I come back to that one, the doors are off. So that's one of many quirks just to be aware of. I'll just go through these other things here over in the scenes menu or tray. The other big one is you can set up a scene, but say I don't actually want this included in the animation. So for example, like sometimes I'll have things that, like this one, I always set up a scene where I just clear out the room and the cabinets and only have external parts. And this is something where I've been really anal in my setup of my library, where any pre-drawn CabinetSense component, which is a scriber plinth, a cover panel, a desktop, I've embedded in that its tag is going to be external parts.
Yeah.
So when I just drop that in from my library, I know that's taken care of. And when I go to this pre-created scene that's actually in my drawing template, it's already set to hide everything else. So that is more for the workshop. I don't want to show that to the customer. I don't want to put it in an animation. So that scene I will
Mm.
uncheck including animation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, I mean, this is another one. I mean, to be honest, well, you can work these things out. I'm not going to go through them, and actually, I don't really use most. But yeah, like active section planes, you'd want to make sure that's selected. You know, like what we showed earlier.
Yeah.
Once you play with it, you actually have. I can well imagine there are people using SketchUp that use scenes in a completely different way to me, because there's actually a lot of power. It's basically just almost like a toggle between various different ways of inspecting your model.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, anything else you want to go through in terms of how it comes to layout or whatever?
I think that makes sense. I need to play with it really, don't I?
Yeah,
So,
probably the next thing. Just have a play. Yeah.
but you were saying about putting the window across to do your screen, like a screen grab sort of thing.
So I've gone blank. When I
You were saying that you often pull the default trays window across to limit
oh
the
yes,
screen
yeah.
export. Are you aware that you can do Command Shift 4?
As a is that as a screen print?
Well, it will give you a screen grab and put it as a desk. So do Command Shift 4, and it will give you a crosshair. Now drag and drop that to the area you want to actually take a photo of.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's so good. I wasn't.
Straight to,
I,
straight to your desktop.
that is. Oh, I love that. So I was aware of. Is it Option Command 5? No, Shift
The
Command.
Command Shift 5 will give you a recording screen.
Well, but it also captures. So I do what you just said, but your way is that bit more immediate because yeah, Shift Command 5 on the Mac, and
Yeah,
then yes, you can screen record, but you can just capture a static image of a selected portion. So I've always been then doing this, but
yeah.
it's a few more steps, isn't it? And then capture. So that's brilliant.
The Command Shift 4 is really quick, and then Command Shift 3 does the whole screen.
Oh right, that's so good. How did you find that out? Because there's so many functions that.
I know it's just one of
Oh,
those things which I started using, and I found it, and I was just like, oh, "That's brilliant!" Because it's literally Command Shift 4, drag drop. That, so
that's
that's
so
how I do a lot of my
quick.
layout stuff. So
Brilliant.
I do loads of my layout stuff exactly like that because I can literally, rather than using scenes, I can
Yeah,
literally just have all the images I want and dump them straight in.
brilliant.
But it's not necessarily the right way to do it. It's just a workaround which I've found. So
Yeah, because of course the right way to do it is to have it's effectively dynamic. Because then if you go and change it in the drawing, it will go through. But yeah, sometimes you just want to create the thing. Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, great.
yeah. But this is exactly why I want to give my man in the workshop more responsibility and more freedom to just get on without me because and probably what we were starting to say at the start was that because I drew it, I know how it goes together. So I know exactly what I want. I know the part as it's being cut on the CNC. I know what it is before I even look at the vector diagram. But no one else will. And trying to get them to understand that is difficult sometimes.
Oh, I know, and this is definitely a solution. Okay, good to see you, and
Yes, you too. Thank you very much, Alison.
soon. Okay, take care. Bye for now.
Take care, man. Bye bye.